Welcome to 5 and 15, a webinar series on strategic marketing and communications, where the team at Charleston Irwig gives you 5 important, useful, actionable ideas within the constraints of a 15-minute webinar. My name is Mark Gale, CEO and partner at Charleston Irwig. For those who can spend just a little bit more than 15 minutes, we'll stay on the line another 10 or so to handle some Q&A. Please use the message feature on your screen to send your questions at any time, and you can send me an email if you want to take something offline or you'd like a summary of the Q&A. Happy to send it to you. Today's topic, strategic positioning across the food system. 5 communications cornerstones. Let's jump right into it. Our food system is almost ridiculously complex compared to even 10 years ago. Local, conventional, organic, GMOs, delivery by Blue Apron, grocerants, exotic produce at proteins. We have choices and potential confusion like never before. For the first time ever in 2016, Americans spent more money on food outside of the home than in grocery stores, a huge shift compared to a few decades back. Let's overlay that with the crazy complexity of communications in a day where a tweet from the president can cause the price of a stock to rise or fall within seconds. 4 seconds, according to the Wall Street Journal. Grandma now dominates Facebook, not college kids. Viewership of NFL games is off 8%, unprecedented. Purchases of paper books by millennials is on the rise. What's a marketer or influencer to do to reach people? Start by solidifying your communications foundation based on these 5 key cornerstones. Yes, that would make a 5-sided building, but think Pentagon. Through more than 2 decades of working with brands across the globe, Charleston Irwig has found these 5 areas to be the essential building blocks of any strategic marketing communications program. Let's take a look at what they are. Brand strategy and development. New brands must establish their base. Mature brands must refresh almost continuously. Campaigns and communications. Are you monitoring the health of your integrated communications ecosystem? Tools are available to help you. Corporate affairs. Who are you in the broader world? How do you act during a merger or acquisition or big transition? CSR and sustainability. Articulating your footprint and projecting your future. Crisis and risk. Something all of us working across the food system and agriculture must consider. Now, the cornerstones cover far too much conceptual territory to hit in one webinar. Today, we'll look at a couple of highlights, key ideas within each one. Start with brand strategy and development. Marketers often feel they can create a brand. That's only partially true. The brand is built on its attributes, and really what makes a brand is the experience people have with it. How does your brand make members of your target audience feel? One tool to help you position is a brand poster, a single-page document that should be the basis for everything your brand is and does. Start by thinking of your brand in new ways. There are exercises for that. If your brand was a movie, would it be Titanic or Deadpool? A book, War and Peace or Cat in the Hat? And then before you add information about your audience, go through the exercise of developing personas. This will take some research, not just age, sex, occupation, and such, but what drives the motivation of your target audience in situations where your brand is encountered. This isn't just sales, but also moving perceptions, online and offline. How, what, and where, not just who. Who gets branding right? There are easy answers like Apple and Tesla, of course. A cult favorite is the brilliantly quirky TV franchise Portlandia. Go online and watch a few episodes. Is your brand as true to itself as Portlandia is to its freakishly accurate parody of the Portland, Oregon stereotype? Unfortunately, probably not. Few brands are, but you can fix that. Number 2, campaigns and communications. Decades ago, advertising and PR were combined to be thought of as one compatible effort. It was kind of revolutionary at the time. Unfortunately, even in this day of full communications integration, advertising and PR are often in one bucket, while every manner of digital resides elsewhere. Consumers, retail and B2B, of course, have moved on without marketers. Your programs, communication programs, are like plants and animals in a terrarium. If one part ails, all parts are diminished. So consider the entire communications ecosystem and measure what happens with your spend via polling or advanced tools like TrendKite for PR, IBM Watson's Lucy for research. You need data points to spend money well. And remember, while traditional communications channels tied to paper, maybe network TV, are nowhere as powerful as they used to be, they are still far from dead and perhaps should be part of your mix. Who got this one right last year? Surprisingly enough, the National Park Service, a government agency, for their 100th anniversary. From an IMAX movie to a partnership with Subaru to a year-long series of feature reports on CBS News to every manner of digital platform to really old school tactics like coffee table books and mugs with logos. The Park Service got it right. Check it out. And by the way, just an aside, please remember to send your questions to us. Be happy to answer them at the end. Cornerstone number 3, corporate affairs. Let's admit it, corporate affairs can be kind of a mushy topic, one that's hard to understand. It goes beyond product. Think of it more as the organizational communications umbrella. Corporate affairs deals with issues having an effect on the entire entity. Culture fits here in many ways. Any major transition, especially mergers and acquisitions, can be troublesome. Groups from Forbes to Harvard to McKinsey have published research saying somewhere between 60% and as many as 87% of mergers fail to deliver what was promised going into the transaction. Few companies handle communications well related to M&A or really big transitions in general. The biggest mistake, not following time-tested rules for success. We've developed at Charleston Norway 10 of those over the years, going through transitions large and small, local and international with many clients. We'll highlight 3. Number 1, talk to employees first and frequently. Even today, that is so often forgotten. Another, develop value chain champions. If your closest suppliers, collaborators, and customers buy in, so will others. And a third, demonstrate passion for the vision. Not just have a vision, demonstrate passion for it. Events with employees, meetings with community, outreach to industry, quantifiable benefits to customers, prove the transition is good. Who did this right? Well, way back in 2012, Facebook with its acquisition of Instagram. Mentioned even though it was a number of years ago because it returned billions of dollars in value. First and foremost, there was a good reason for the partnership. Each side completed something about the other. That's one thing in terms of business that's often overlooked. Second, communications was hyper-transparent. You'd think that's required with digital companies, but that's not always the case. And then the vision. There was a vision that was well articulated that allowed Instagram also to retain its brand integrity. A lot of people probably don't even know that Facebook owns Instagram, and that's okay. Number 4 on the cornerstones, CSR and sustainability. Integrity is an important word, one that is often misused, but must be part of every organization's assessment of itself. And not just in the sense of, sure, hey, we're great people, you should work with us. It needs to be based on evidence of action. Fortunately, profit is now regarded as an accepted and logical part of any company's sustainability platform. You have to make a profit in order to remain in business. So how does one start in this complex area? By going well beyond philanthropy to consider your areas of greatest impact, what you affect and what you can affect. These will usually fit into 3 to 5 pillars, which will most often encompass the many positive things a company is already doing. If something falls outside of those pillars, reassess. Should you be doing it at all? Maybe, maybe not. A company that gets this right is the drug firm NovoNordisk, the international company. They have 3 key pillars of impact. Number 1, access to care. You can see those on their website. They're a health company. They want people globally who can afford it, and particularly those who can't, to be able to use their medicines to get well. Employees and safety. Number 2. A science company is a brain trust. You have to have employees, so you better care for them. Safety, when you're dealing with compounds such as they do, and manufacturing, really important. So that one would make a lot of sense. And their 3rd, environment and climate. A company focused on health certainly should be concerned about environment and climate. And so all of those really make sense for them. All their big initiatives fit under those. And it's really related to how they operate and what they do. The 5th cornerstone, crisis and risk. Animal welfare, labor, environment, food safety. If you work in food or agriculture, you face risk. Risk via the people producing your product up and down the value chain. Risk via the people who eat the end product, even if several steps removed from you. We're in a day where people care what the cow ate, that made the milk, that made the yogurt, that went into the parfait, and that can come back to you. A maddening oversight by so many companies is their unwillingness to go through the exercise of scenario planning to determine likely vulnerabilities, and then to prepare basic position papers and talking points related to those vulnerabilities, and to put a very basic crisis communications plan on the shelf for instant activation when needed. Doing so can save you so much time. It can sometimes cause you to change what you're doing to avoid a crisis, and the cost is minor compared to facing a crisis and not being prepared, even for one day. We live in a world where no problem is local. Every problem can be magnified exponentially globally via social media almost immediately. Who got this one terribly wrong? Volkswagen with their emissions scandal. They could have taken full ownership immediately. They could have apologized immediately. They could have made aggressive amends immediately. Instead, they were caught flat-footed, responded appropriately only after responding inappropriately. The result, they still ended up taking ownership, still apologized, still were forced to make amends, which is what happens, all while prolonging the crisis, spending who knows how much extra money doing it. Don't be Volkswagen. So let's summarize here, and be sure to send those questions, by the way, in case you have any. Take one more look as we finish up. Brand strategy and development. Be Portlandia by developing your brand poster. Campaigns and communications. Communications ecosystem health check. The tools are out there to help you do this. Corporate affairs. Employees first and frequently. You will not go wrong considering employees first. CSR and sustainability. Create your pillars of impact. Work from there. Crisis and risk. Do your scenario planning now. You can't figure out 100% of what might go wrong. You can figure out a lot of it and prepare for it. We're coming up on 15 minutes, so please take a last opportunity to message in your Q&A. Then we'll hang around for about another 10 minutes to have some discussion. And a reminder, you can always email me if you want a copy of those questions, or if you just have something you want to take offline, I'll be happy to answer it or send you whatever information you might want. For now, I'm Mark Gale, partner and CEO at Charleston Orwig. Thanks for participating in 5 in 15. Now for the Q&A, for those who could stick with us just a little bit longer. First one deals with corporate affairs. How do you approach M&As when they are complicated? Well, I would say that most of them are complicated, whether it's small or large, because people are very concerned about the integrity of your company, continuity. Employees are rightfully concerned about whether they will have jobs. So I would approach everyone as complex and go through scenario planning to work to make sure you get it right. Will you share a template for the brand poster? Happy to do that. My email address is right here and can certainly send you that if you're interested. Happy to do it. How soon after starting should a company have a sustainability statement? Well, before you can have a sustainability statement, I would first do some work to prepare your sustainability platform, to look at your pillars of impact, and do that by seeing what kind of impact you have in the world and really where you play. So for instance, if you were producing meat or you were in animal agriculture, one of many products, animal welfare certainly would be part of your pillars, or probably one pillar to stand alone. Versus if you were a company that was importing spices, well, sure, you care about animals being treated well, but it's not core to your business. So you wouldn't have that as one of your pillars, but you might have something about fair treatment of workers in another country where your spices came from. After you put those pillars together, then you can work on your sustainability platform and any statements. Is there anything I should do prior to pending merger? Should I wait till the formal announcement? You don't want to wait for the formal announcement. As I said earlier, you should look at scenario planning first, and then part of that is to prepare basic position papers, Q&A talking points in order to be able to handle questions adequately. Why do people focus on CSR, another question, when that isn't the product being sold? Because it's probably part of their, not communications ecosystem, but their company ecosystem. A good example of that might be Smithfield Foods, with a program we worked on with them, Learners to Leaders. It was a public-private partnership where they would go into companies where, or into communities where they had plants and work with local education, basically whatever education system there needed. Now, the reason you'd want to have a program like Learners to Leaders is because if you have a plant, you have a lot of people working there. They have families. Like all families, they care about their children. They want to have a good life. So if you want to have a good workforce, you need to take care of those workers, not just on the job, but in the community where they live. So you need a strong community to support your company as well, because as a corporation, you're a citizen of that community. So CSR, in that sense, isn't directly related to selling a ham or to that ham that they might sell, but it is a really integral part of their company and their ability to bring that ham to the market. Here's one. Somebody read the same article I did about VW. VW became, just this week, the #1 car seller in the world over Toyota. So doesn't, that fly in the face of them having any kind of problem related to those emission scandals? Well, if you think back to that stock price chart with Toyota, they lost billions of dollars in stockholder value. The cost of this, partly because of what they did wrong and partly by how they handled it, more billions of dollars could have either been invested in the company or returned as dividends to stockholders. And so just sales is not the metric, not the only metric you need to consider. Toyota should be celebrating #1. They're still running, or I'm sorry, Volkswagen should be celebrating #1. Instead, they still are trying to make amends, tail between legs, to recoup from their emissions scandal. Crisis and risk. How do you share factual information on food when people are so emotionally attached to their food? Well, some of the discussions about food and agriculture, animals, GMOs, many of these subjects can be quite emotionally charged. There's an old saying, well, first, the last thing anybody who is emotional about an issue wants is for the attitude to be taken, let me educate you why you're wrong. Nobody wants to be educated on why they are wrong. So really the thing to do, there's an old saying, first go to where they are. Try to understand the basis for their emotional concern. Try to establish some common ground. There probably is some common ground. And then perhaps you can work from there to have a dialogue and to move forward. What is the number one step after a crisis? Don't assume that it's over. Online, especially these days, you need to continue to work to reignite positive information about the company. So just the negative points about the crisis, whatever it was, don't stay there. Certainly reassess, and if you have made any changes to rectify a situation or make good or change to prevent a crisis in the future, you can begin to communicate about that. Not to brag about it, but to share important information relevant to the crisis that can help you move forward. Those are the questions we have today. Thanks again for joining us. See more information about us, charlestonorwig.com. You can always email me with any questions you might have. For now, that's 5:15. I'm Mark Gale. Thanks for joining us.